My name is Claire Hoffman and I'm 34 years old. When the oncologist said I had 6 months to live, I expected my husband to hold my hand. Instead, he sold our house from under me, packed my bags and told me to die somewhere cheaper. He thought I wouldn't make it to January. But I did. And when I walked back into his life a year later, healthy and very much alive, I made sure he regretted every single decision he made. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted with your life, hit that subscribe button, like and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my stories. This story gets darker before it gets better, and you won't believe how karma came full circle. Drop a comment if you think revenge is a dish best served cold, because mine was frozen solid. October 2019. Seattle, Washington. The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days and neither had my coughing. I'd been ignoring it for weeks, chalking it up to the brutal hours I was pulling as a senior architect at Thornton and Associates. We were in the final phase of designing a mixed-use development downtown, the kind of project that could make or break careers. I was the lead on it, the only woman in the senior design team, and I'd clawed my way there through 15-hour days and weekend after weekend at the drafting table. But that morning I coughed so hard I tasted copper. Blood. Bright red against the white porcelain of our bathroom sink. My hands shook as I gripped the counter, my reflection staring back at me, pale, hollowed out, wrong. Claire? Are you okay there? That was my husband, Troy Hoffman. 42, charming in that easy way that made people trust him instantly. He worked in commercial real estate, flipping properties, making deals over golf games and expensive lunches. We'd been married for 8 years, together for 12. High school sweethearts who'd somehow made it work through college, career building, and the decision not to have kids yet because we were focusing on ourselves. I wiped my mouth, flushed the evidence and opened the door with a smile I didn't feel. Just tired, I said. This project's killing me. I didn't know how prophetic those words were. By the time I finally dragged myself to Dr. Patricia Wells at Seattle Medical Center 2 weeks later, the cough had become constant, and I'd lost 12 pounds without trying. The X-rays showed shadows in my lungs. The CT scan confirmed them. The biopsy made it official. Stage 3 lung cancer. Non-small cell. Aggressive. I'd never smoked a day in my life. Dr. Wells, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and steady hands, sat across from me in her office that smelled faintly of antiseptic and coffee. "We're looking at chemotherapy immediately," she said, sliding a folder across her desk. "Radiation following that. With treatment we're hopeful. Without it." She paused, choosing her words carefully. 6 months, maybe 8. The number hit me like a physical blow. 6 months. I was 33 years old. I had a mortgage, a career I'd built from nothing, a husband who loved me. 6 months wasn't enough time to say goodbye to any of it. "What are my chances?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "With treatment?" 50-50, she said honestly. "It depends on how your body responds. Some patients go into remission. Others." She didn't finish, but she didn't have to. I walked out of that office in a daze, clutching the folder of treatment options and pamphlets about cancer support groups. The Seattle rain felt colder than usual, seeping through my jacket as I stood in the parking garage, trying to figure out how to tell Troy that our life was about to implode. He was home when I got there, working from his home office, probably closing another deal. Our house was a renovated Craftsman in Ballard, 3 bedrooms, original hardwood floors, a kitchen I'd redesigned myself. We'd bought it 5 years ago for $620,000, and it was worth close to $900,000 now. It was our biggest investment, our pride. I found Troy at his desk, phone pressed to his ear, laughing about something. When he saw me, he held up a finger. 1 minute, and kept talking. I stood there in the doorway, the diagnosis folder feeling like it weighed 100 pounds. When he finally hung up, he spun his chair around, grinning. "Closed the Redmond deal. $60,000 commission, babe. We should celebrate." "Troy," I said, my voice cracking. "I need to talk to you." His smile faltered. "What's wrong?" I told him everything. The diagnosis. The staging. The treatment plan. The 50-50 odds. I watched his face as I spoke, searching for the man I'd fallen in love with, the one who'd promised to be there in sickness and health. What I saw instead was fear. Not for me. For himself. "Cancer," he repeated like he was testing the word. "It is Claire. How did this happen?" "I don't know," I said, tears streaming down my face now. "It just did. But Dr. Wells says if I start chemo right away. Chemo. He ran a hand through his hair, already pacing. That's expensive. Really expensive. Does your insurance cover it? The question felt like a slap. Not, how are you feeling? Not, we'll get through this. Just money. Most of it, I said slowly. But there'll be copays. And I'll probably have to take time off work. Troy stopped pacing, his jaw tight. How much time? I don't know yet. Months maybe. He didn't say anything for a long moment, just stood there staring out the window at the rain. When he finally turned back to me, his expression was carefully neutral. He said. We'll figure it out. One step at a time. It should have been comforting. But it wasn't. The chemotherapy started 2 weeks later. I'd arranged short-term disability through work, which would cover 60% of my salary for up to 6 months. My boss, Kenneth Hartley, was supportive, promising my job would be waiting when I recovered. My team sent flowers and cards. Everything seemed manageable. Except Troy. He became distant almost immediately. The man who used to kiss me goodbye every morning started leaving for meetings before I woke up. The man who used to ask about my day stopped asking about my treatment. When I'd come home from chemo sessions pale and shaking, he'd be buried in his laptop or out showing properties. I'm dealing with a lot right now, he'd say when I tried to talk to him about it. The market's competitive. I can't afford to slow down. By December I was 3 months into treatment and I looked like a ghost. My hair had fallen out in clumps until I'd finally shaved it all off. I'd lost 30 pounds. My skin had a grayish tinge and I could barely climb the stairs without stopping to catch my breath. The worst part wasn't the physical pain. It was the loneliness. Troy had essentially moved into the guest bedroom, claiming he didn't want to disturb my sleep. One night I heard him on the phone in his office. I'd gotten up to use the bathroom and his voice carried through the thin walls. I know, Mom, I know, he was saying. But what am I supposed to do? He's sick. Really sick. The doctors are saying she might not make it past March. Silence as his mother responded. I've thought about that, Troy continued, his voice lower now. If she doesn't make it, the house is in both our names. I'd have to buy out her estate or sell and split it with her family. Either way, I'm screwed. My hand was on the doorknob, frozen. No, you're right, he said after another pause. I need to protect myself. I'll talk to a lawyer this week. I stumbled back to bed, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. He was already planning for my death. Already figuring out how to profit from it. The next morning he acted like nothing had happened. Made coffee. Asked if I needed anything. I said no, my voice hollow, and watched him leave for another meeting. That's when I started paying attention. Really paying attention. I noticed him taking phone calls in his car. I noticed the way he'd tilt his laptop screen away when I walked by. I noticed how he'd started looking at me, not with love or even pity, but with impatience, like I was an obstacle between him and something he wanted. By mid-December I was exhausted from chemo, but my mind was sharp. Too sharp. I couldn't sleep, so I'd lie awake at night, listening to Troy snore in the guest room, wondering what he was planning. I got my answer 2 days before Christmas. I'd been too weak to do much decorating, but I'd managed to put up a small tree in the living room. Troy came home early that day, which was unusual. He had papers in his hand and an expression I couldn't quite read. Claire, he said, sitting down on the couch across from me. We need to talk about the house. My stomach dropped. What about it? The market's really good right now, he said, not quite meeting my eyes. I've been looking at the numbers and we could get close to $1 million if we sell before the new year. That's a huge profit. Sell? I repeated, my voice weak. Troy, I'm in the middle of treatment. Where would we even go? Well, he said, and there it was, the hesitation that told me everything I needed to know. That's the thing. I've been thinking, with your medical bills piling up and the uncertainty of everything, it might make sense to downsize. I found a small apartment in Renton. Month-to-month lease. Way cheaper. Renton. That was 30 minutes away, in a completely different world from our neighborhood. Troy, all my doctors are here. My treatment center is 10 minutes away. You can find new doctors, he said, his tone sharpening. Claire, be realistic. If the treatment doesn't work. He trailed off, but the implication was clear. If I died, he didn't want to be stuck with a house in both our names. I'm not selling, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. This is our home. His jaw tightened. It's not just your decision. My name's on the deed too. Exactly, I shot back. Which means you can't sell it without my signature. He stood up abruptly, the papers crinkling in his hand. Fine, he said coldly. But think about it, Claire. Really think about what's best for both of us. He left the room and I heard his office door slam. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the conversation the way he'd said, if the treatment doesn't work, like it was inevitable. Like he was already planning my funeral. I grabbed my laptop and started digging. Took me 3 hours, but I found them. Emails. Dozens of them. Between Troy and a real estate agent named Vanessa Price. They'd been discussing listing the house since November. There were draft contracts, market analyses, even suggested staging tips. And in one email dated December 10th, Troy had written, "My wife's illness is progressing. The doctors don't expect her to make it past Q1. I need this done quickly and quietly." My hands shook as I read it again. Don't expect her to make it past Q1. First quarter. That was March at the latest. He'd given me a deadline to die. I felt something inside me crack. Not break but crack like ice under pressure. The woman who'd loved this man, who'd built a life with him, who'd trusted him with everything, she was gone. What was left was colder, sharper. If Troy thought I was going to roll over and die on his timeline, he was about to learn how wrong he was. The week between Christmas and New Year's was the worst of my life. And that's saying something considering I was actively dying. Troy barely spoke to me. He'd leave early, come home late, and spend the hours in between either locked in his office or out networking. I pretended not to notice, but I was documenting everything now. Every time he left. Every phone call I could overhear. Every email I could access from our shared laptop. On December 28th, he brought home a stack of papers. "Claire," he said, his tone businesslike. "I need you to sign these." I was on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, too weak from my last chemo session to do much else. "What are they?" "Just some financial stuff," he said vaguely. "Refinancing paperwork. It'll lower our monthly payments." I took the papers with shaking hands. They weren't refinancing documents. They were quit-claim deeds, legal forms that would transfer half of the house ownership entirely to Troy. And beneath those, a listing agreement with Vanessa Price to sell the property for $925,000. My vision blurred with rage. "You think I'm stupid?" I said, my voice low and dangerous. "These aren't refinancing papers, Troy. You're trying to steal my house." His mask slipped for just a second. I saw the flash of anger, quickly covered with false concern. "Claire, you're not thinking clearly. The medication." "Don't," I cut him off. "Don't you dare blame this on the chemo. I know exactly what you're doing." He stared at me for a long moment and then something in his expression changed. The pretense dropped completely. "Fine," he said coldly. "You want the truth? I can't do this anymore. I can't watch you die slowly while our assets get tied up in legal hell. The house is worth almost $1 million, Claire. If you die, your family's going to come after half of it. I'm not letting that happen. If I die," I repeated, my voice shaking. "You mean when you think I'm going to die? What if I don't, Troy? What if I beat this?" He laughed. Actually, I laughed. "Come on. Look at yourself. The doctors gave you 6 months. That was 4 months ago. You're not getting better, you're getting worse. I'm just being practical." The cruelty of it sucked the air from the room. This man who'd promised to love me in sickness and health was actively rooting for my death so he could cash out. "Get out," I whispered. "What?" "Get out," I screamed, using what little strength I had. "Get out of this room, get out of my sight." He held up his hands mockingly. "Relax. I'm going. But you're signing those papers eventually, Claire. One way or another." He left. I heard the front door slam, his car start, the sound of him driving away. And then I broke down completely. I called the only person I could think of, my older sister, Bethany Wright. She lived in Portland, 3 hours away with her husband and 2 kids. We'd always been close, but I hadn't told her how bad things had gotten with Troy. I'd been too ashamed. "Claire?" she answered on the second ring. "What's wrong? You sound awful." I told her everything through broken sobs. The diagnosis. Troy's coldness. The overheard phone calls. The emails. The quit-claim deeds. All of it. That son of a bitch, Beth breathed when I finished. Claire, you need to leave. Tonight. Pack a bag and leave. I can't, I said miserably. I'm too sick. And where would I go? Here, she said immediately. Come to Portland. Stay with us. We'll figure out the medical stuff, but you can't stay there with him. He's already shown you who he is. Beth, I can't just leave. My doctors can refer you to doctors here, she interrupted firmly. Claire, listen to me. That man is waiting for you to die. You need to get out before he does something worse. Her words chilled me, but she was right. Troy had already crossed lines I never thought he would. What would stop him from crossing more? We stayed on the phone for 2 more hours planning. Beth would drive up on December 30th. We'd pack my essentials while Troy was out and I'd disappear before New Year's. But Troy moved faster. On December 29th, I woke up to voices downstairs. Unfamiliar voices. I pulled myself out of bed, my body screaming in protest, and stumbled to the hallway. There were people in my house. Strangers. A couple in their 30s, well-dressed, walking through my living room with Troy and Vanessa Price, the real estate agent from the emails. As you can see, Troy was saying smoothly, the hardwood is original, fully restored. The kitchen was custom renovated 2 years ago. I gripped the railing, my knuckles white. What the hell is going on? Everyone turned to look at me. The couple's faces registered shock. I must have looked like death, bald and skeletal in my pajamas. Vanessa's expression was calculating. Troy was annoyed. Claire, he said tersely. Go back upstairs. This is my house, I said, my voice shaking with fury. Who are these people? Potential buyers, Vanessa said smoothly, stepping forward. Mr. Hoffman is showing the property. I didn't agree to sell. Troy's jaw tightened. We'll discuss this later. We'll discuss it now, I said, moving down the stairs even though each step felt like agony. I'm not selling. This showing is over. The couple exchanged uncomfortable glances. Maybe we should come back another time, the man said. No need, Troy said quickly. My wife is she's not well. She doesn't understand the situation. I understand perfectly, I said, reaching the bottom of the stairs. I looked at the couple directly. My husband is trying to sell our house without my consent while I'm undergoing cancer treatment. Does that sound like someone you want to do business with? The woman's face went pale. Oh my God. Let's go, honey, the man said, already moving toward the door. They left quickly, Vanessa hurrying after them, shooting Troy a furious look. The moment the door closed, Troy rounded on me. What the hell was that? That was me protecting what's mine, I shot back. You're insane, he hissed. You just cost me a sale. Good. His face turned red with rage. You want to play it this way? Fine. I talked to a lawyer, Claire. I can force a sale. We're married, which means marital property laws apply. I can petition the court, prove you're mentally incompetent due to your illness, and get a judge to sign off on selling the house. You've got maybe 2 months left to live. Do you really want to spend them fighting me? The threat hung in the air between us. Try it, I said quietly. I dare you. He stared at me for a long moment, then grabbed his keys. I'm staying at a hotel tonight. When I come back tomorrow, you'd better be ready to talk reasonably. He left. And I stood there in my living room, alone, realizing that my marriage was over and my husband was actively trying to rob me blind while I was dying. I called Beth back immediately. He brought buyers to the house, I told her, my voice hollow. He's threatening to have me declared incompetent. That's it, Beth said. I'm coming now. Tonight. Pack whatever you can, Claire. You're done with him. She arrived at midnight, her husband Austin driving while she sat in the back with a pillow and blankets to make me comfortable for the drive. We worked quickly, throwing clothes, documents, and my laptop into suitcases. I grabbed my medical files, my phone, anything I thought I might need. On my way out, I left Troy a note on the kitchen counter. You wanted me gone. Congratulations. Don't bother calling. I'll be in touch through my lawyer. We drove through the night, Beth holding my hand in the back seat while I cried myself to sleep. When I woke up, we were pulling into her driveway in Portland. The sun was coming up on December 30th, 2019. In 2 days it will be a new year. A year Troy had bet I wouldn't see. I was going to prove him wrong. Beth's house in Portland was everything mine in Seattle wasn't. Warm, chaotic, alive. Her kids, 7-year-old Emma and 5-year-old Lucas, were initially scared of me. I didn't blame them. I looked like a skeleton with skin stretched over it, bald and gray, moving like every step might be my last. But kids are resilient. Within a week, Emma was bringing me drawings of flowers, and Lucas would sit next to me on the couch, not saying anything, just being present. Their acceptance, their lack of judgment, it reminded me what unconditional love actually looked like. The first order of business was getting my medical care transferred. Beth drove me to Legacy Emmanuel Medical Center on January 2, 2020. My new oncologist, Dr. Raymond Hughes, was younger than Dr. Wells, maybe early 40s, with an intensity that made me trust him immediately. He reviewed my files, ran new scans, and sat down with both me and Beth in his office 3 days later. "Your Seattle team did good work," he said, pulling up imaging on his computer screen. "The tumors have shrunk significantly. About 40% reduction since you started treatment." My heart lurched. They shrunk. "The chemo's working," he confirmed. "Not as dramatically as we'd like, but working. You're responding well, Ms. Hoffman. Better than the initial prognosis suggested." Beth squeezed my hand so hard I thought she'd break my fingers. "So what does that mean?" I asked, afraid to hope. "Am I going to make it?" Dr. Hughes met my eyes. "I can't make promises. Cancer's unpredictable. But if you continue responding this well, if we stay aggressive with treatment, I think you've got a real shot at remission. Not just survival, remission." I broke down crying right there in his office. For the first time in months, someone was telling me I might live. "There's one thing though," Dr. Hughes added carefully. "Stress is a killer, especially with cancer patients. Your cortisol levels are through the roof. Whatever's going on in your life that's causing that level of stress, you need to eliminate it." Beth and I exchanged glances. "I'm getting divorced," I said simply. "Good," he said without hesitation. "That's exactly the kind of decision that'll help you heal." That afternoon, Beth drove me to a law office downtown. The attorney, a woman named Patricia Chin. No, wait, I can't use Chin. Let me call her Patricia Simmons. Patricia Simmons specialized in family law and had a reputation for being ruthless when she needed to be. She was in her 50s, sharp-eyed, with silver hair cut into a severe bob. We sat in her office while I laid out everything. The marriage, the diagnosis, Troy's emails, the attempted sale, his threat to have me declared incompetent. Patricia took notes on a yellow legal pad, her expression darkening with each detail. "This man is a piece of work," she said when I finished. "But you've got leverage. Those emails you found. Gold. Him bringing buyers to the house without your consent? That's bad faith dealing with marital property. And his threat about declaring you incompetent." She smiled grimly. "That's going to backfire spectacularly." "How?" I asked. "Because your doctors say you're competent. You're undergoing treatment, yes, but you're mentally sound. Any judge would see his petition for what it is. A transparent attempt to steal your assets while you're vulnerable. We're going to file for divorce immediately and get an injunction blocking any sale or transfer of the house." "Can he still force a sale during the divorce?" Beth asked. "He can try," Patricia said. "But with your sister willing to testify about his behavior, with the emails as evidence, and with your medical team supporting your competency, I like our chances. The question is, do you want to fight for the house or just for your fair share?" I thought about that house. The kitchen I'd redesigned. The garden I'd planted. The life I'd built there before cancer, before Troy's betrayal. "I want to fight for it," I said. "All of it." Patricia nodded approvingly. "Then let's go to war." The divorce papers were filed on January 7, 2020. Troy was served at his office by a process server. According to Patricia's contact, he'd gone white as a sheet when he read them. He called me 17 times that day. I didn't answer. He texted, "Claire, this is crazy. We can work this out. Don't let lawyers ruin what we have." What we had. As if we still had anything but contempt. I texted back once, "All communication goes through my attorney." Then I blocked his number. The injunction hearing was set for January 15th. In the meantime, I focused on surviving. The chemo sessions continued every 2 weeks and I was religious about them. Beth drove me to every appointment, sat with me during the infusions, held my hand when the nausea hit so hard I thought I'd die right there in the treatment chair. Austin, her husband, was a software engineer who worked from home. He'd make me smoothies, gentle soups, anything I could keep down. They never made me feel like a burden even though I knew I was disrupting their lives completely. At night, when the house was quiet and I couldn't sleep, I'd sit in their guest room with my laptop and plan. Patricia had subpoenaed Troy's financial records, and what we found was damning. Not only had he been planning to sell the house, but he'd also opened a separate bank account in November, right after my diagnosis, and had been siphoning money from our joint accounts. Small amounts at first, $500 here, $1,000 there, but by December he'd moved over $40,000. He was building an escape fund, Patricia explained during one of our meetings. He was planning to divorce you, take the house sale proceeds, and disappear with his money protected. Can we get that money back? I asked. Absolutely. That's marital property transferred in bad faith. The judge is going to crucify him. The injunction hearing arrived. I was terrified to see Troy again, but Patricia insisted I be there. You need to show the judge you're competent, engaged, and fighting for yourself, she said. Beth came with me for moral support. We walked into the courthouse in downtown Portland, and there he was, Troy Hoffman, looking expensive in a tailored suit, standing with his attorney, a slick-looking man named Gerald Briggs. Troy's eyes met mine across the corridor, and I saw something flicker there. Suck maybe. I'd gained a little weight back, maybe 5 pounds. My color was better. I was wearing a wig Beth had bought me, styled in a short bob. I didn't look healthy, but I didn't look like I was actively dying either. He hadn't expected me to still be alive, let alone standing in a courthouse opposing him. The hearing itself was brutal. Gerald Briggs argued that the house sale was a practical necessity, given my terminal condition and mounting medical bills. He painted Troy as a devoted husband making difficult decisions to protect both of us financially. Patricia destroyed him. She submitted the emails between Troy and Vanessa Price, highlighting the line about not expecting me to survive past Q1. She submitted bank records showing the $40,000 he'd hidden. She brought in statements from Beth about Troy's emotional abandonment and the attempted home showing while I was still living there. Then she called me to testify. I walked to the witness stand, my legs shaking but my voice steady. Patricia asked me to describe the moment Troy brought buyers to our home without my knowledge. I woke up to strangers in my living room, I said, looking directly at the judge. I was 4 months into chemotherapy, barely able to walk down the stairs, and my husband was selling our house out from under me. When I objected, he told me I was too sick to understand the situation. He told me I had 2 months to live and asked if I really wanted to spend them fighting him. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Honor Janice Kolsky, looked at Troy with open disgust. Mr. Hoffman, she said. Did you actually say that to your wife? Troy's attorney whispered something to him. Troy cleared his throat. I was under a lot of stress, Your Honor. I may have spoken harshly in the heat of the moment. You told your dying wife she had 2 months to live and to stop fighting you, Judge Kolsky repeated slowly. And you consider that speaking harshly? Troy said nothing. Judge Kolsky made her ruling from the bench. I'm granting the injunction in its entirety. The marital residence cannot be sold, transferred, or encumbered until the divorce proceedings are complete. Furthermore, I'm ordering Mr. Hoffman to return the $40,000 he removed from joint accounts to a court-supervised escrow account within 30 days. This case reeks of bad faith, Mr. Hoffman, and I'm putting you on notice that any further attempts to manipulate marital assets will result in sanctions. We won. Patricia and I walked out of that courthouse and I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Power. Not physical strength, I was still weak from chemo, but the power that comes from fighting back and winning. Troy tried to approach me in the parking lot. Claire, please, can we just talk? No, I said simply and kept walking. That night back at Beth's house, I allowed myself to feel hope. Dr. Hughes had said stress was killing me. Well, I just eliminated my biggest source of stress. Now I could focus on the only thing that mattered, surviving. Over the next few months, a rhythm developed. Chemo every 2 weeks. Court filings and legal strategy sessions with Patricia every other week. Slowly, painfully, I was getting stronger. By March 2020, the month Troy had predicted I wouldn't see, I was walking around the block without stopping to rest. By April, I'd gained back 15 pounds. By May, Dr. Hughes ran new scans and sat me down with a smile I'd never seen before. Claire, he said. The tumors have shrunk by 70%. Your blood work is nearly normal. You're responding even better than we hoped. What does that mean? I asked, afraid to believe it. It means we're talking about remission, he said. Real, measurable remission. Keep this up, and by the end of summer we might be done with active treatment. I called Beth first. Then Patricia. Then I allowed myself to cry, not from despair this time but from relief. I was going to live. And Troy was going to face me. The divorce proceedings had been moving slowly through the courts, complicated by COVID shutdowns in spring 2020. But by July we had a trial date set for August. Patricia was confident. He's going to offer a settlement, she predicted. Once he realizes you're not dying and you're not backing down, he'll want to cut his losses. He was right. In late July, Gerald Briggs reached out with an offer. Troy would keep the house but pay me $300,000 for my half, about $150,000 less than my share was actually worth. In exchange, I'd walk away from any claims to his retirement accounts or other assets. It's insulting, Patricia said, tossing the offer letter on her desk. He's betting you'll take it to avoid a trial. What do you think I should do? I asked. She leaned forward, her eyes sharp. I think you should reject it and take him to trial. You've got him dead to rights. The judge already hates him. We can prove financial misconduct, emotional abandonment, and attempted exploitation of your illness. In a state like Oregon with equitable distribution laws, you're entitled to half of everything, including that house, his retirement accounts, and compensation for the marital funds he tried to hide. You could walk away with $600,000, maybe more. But a trial is expensive, I said. And exhausting. It is, Patricia agreed. But here's what I know about men like Troy Hoffman: they're bullies. They prey on weakness. The moment you stand up to them, really stand up, they crumble. Make him go to trial. Make him sit in that courtroom and explain to a judge why he tried to sell your home while you were dying. Make him pay for what he did. Her words resonated. Troy had spent our entire marriage making me feel small, especially at the end. He'd bet on me dying quietly. He'd underestimated me. It was time to show him exactly how wrong he'd been. Let's go to trial, I said. Patricia smiled. Now we're talking. The trial was set for August 24, 2020. In the weeks leading up to it, I prepared obsessively. Patricia coached me on testimony, had me review documents until I could recite them from memory. We built a timeline of Troy's betrayal. Every email, every hidden transaction, every cruel word. But something else was happening too. I was getting healthy. By mid-August, my scans showed the tumors had shrunk by 85%. Dr. Hughes was talking about moving me to maintenance treatment, maybe ending chemo entirely by fall. I'd beaten cancer. Now I was going to beat Troy. The night before the trial, I couldn't sleep. I lay in Beth's guest room, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The diagnosis. The betrayal. The fight. The survival. I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago. Scared, sick, willing to believe that my worth was tied to my husband's love. That woman was gone. The cancer had burned her away, leaving someone harder, clearer, and stronger. Tomorrow I'd walk into that courtroom and take back everything Troy had tried to steal. And then I'd show him what it meant to underestimate Claire Hoffman. August 24, 2020. The Multnomah County Courthouse. I wore a navy blue dress that Beth helped me pick out, professional, dignified, but not trying too hard. My wig was styled simply. I'd done my makeup carefully to hide the lingering pallor, though honestly I didn't look that sick anymore. 7 months of fighting had transformed me from death's door back to something resembling alive. Troy was already there when we arrived, sitting at the defendant's table with Gerald Briggs. He looked thinner than I remembered, his suit hanging a bit loose. Good. I hoped he'd been losing sleep. When his eyes met mine across the courtroom, I saw it, the shock, the disbelief. He'd really thought I'd be dead by now. The realization that I was still here, still fighting, still winning, was written all over his face. Judge Kowalski presided, the same judge who'd granted my injunction back in January. She remembered us, I could tell by the way her gaze hardened when she looked at Troy. The trial lasted 3 days, but I'll spare you the legal minutiae. What mattered were the moments that counted. Patricia called me to the stand on day 1. I testified for 2 hours, walking the jury through our marriage, the diagnosis, and Troy's systematic betrayal. I kept my voice steady, my facts clear. I didn't cry or rage. I just told the truth. Ms. Hoffman, Patricia asked. When your husband told you that you had 2 months to live and asked if you wanted to spend them fighting him, what went through your mind? I looked at Troy. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I realized, I said slowly, that the man I married was gone. Maybe he'd never existed. Because the man I thought I married would never weaponize my illness against me. Would never try to steal from me while I was at my weakest. Would never bet on my death as a business strategy. A business strategy? Patricia prompted. That's what it was, I said. He wanted to sell our house before I died so he could keep all the proceeds. If I'd died after the sale, he wouldn't have to split anything with my family. He was literally waiting for me to die so he could profit from it. The jury looked disgusted. Good. Gerald Briggs cross-examined me, trying to paint me as bitter and vindictive, exaggerating Troy's actions out of spite. But I wouldn't take the bait. Mr. Briggs, I said calmly, I have text messages, emails, and bank records. This isn't about bitterness. It's about documentation. He had no response to that. On day 2, Patricia called Beth to testify. My sister was magnificent, calm, detailed, devastating. She described finding me in Seattle broken and abandoned. She described the midnight escape, my declining health, the way I'd expected to die alone. Did your sister ever speak poorly of her husband before the diagnosis? Patricia asked. Never, Beth said firmly. She loved him. She defended him even when I thought he was being selfish. It wasn't until she got sick that his true character showed. Then Patricia dropped the bomb. She called Vanessa Price, the real estate agent. We'd subpoenaed her and she tried to avoid testifying, but the court compelled her. Vanessa was nervous, clearly uncomfortable. Patricia handed her the email chain with Troy. Ms. Price, can you read the email dated December 10, 2019 from Troy Hoffman? Vanessa's voice was barely above a whisper. My wife's illness is progressing. The doctors don't expect her to make it past Q1. I need this done quickly and quietly. And what did you understand him to mean by that? Patricia pressed. That he wanted to sell the house before his wife died, Vanessa admitted. He said it would be easier to close the deal without, complications. Complications meaning his dying wife? Patricia clarified. Yes. The jury was riveted. I watched several of them glance at Troy with open contempt. Troy took the stand on day 3 and it was a massacre. Gerald Briggs tried to control the narrative, asking softball questions about the stress of watching a spouse die, the financial pressures of medical bills. Troy played his part, voice cracking at appropriate moments, painting himself as a devoted husband making impossible choices. Then Patricia stood up for cross-examination. Mr. Hoffman, she began, you testified that you were devoted to your wife during her illness. Is that correct? Yes, Troy said. And yet you moved out of your shared bedroom into a guest room in November 2019, correct? I didn't want to disturb her sleep. Or you didn't want to be around her, Patricia suggested. Mr. Hoffman, how many of your wife's chemotherapy appointments did you attend? Troy hesitated. I don't remember exactly. Let me help you, Patricia said, pulling out a document. According to the records from Seattle Medical Center, your wife had 12 chemo sessions between October 2019 and December 2019. You attended 0. Does that sound like devotion to you? Troy's jaw tightened. I was working. Someone had to pay the bills. Speaking of bills, Patricia continued, let's talk about the $40,000 you transferred from your joint accounts to a private account in November. What were those funds for? General expenses, Troy said vaguely. General expenses, Patricia repeated. Mr. Hoffman, you spent $18,000 at a luxury resort in Hawaii in December 2019. Was that a general expense? The courtroom went silent. That was a business trip, Troy said, but his voice was weak. A business trip to Hawaii while your wife was dying of cancer in Seattle, Patricia said. Did you invite her? She was too sick to travel. Did you ask her if she wanted to go? Troy said nothing. Patricia moved in for the kill. Mr. Hoffman, in your email to Vanessa Price, you wrote that you needed to sell the house quickly and quietly before your wife died. Did you ever discuss selling the house with your wife before that email? We talked about it. That's a lie, Patricia said flatly. Your wife testified that the first she heard of a potential sale was December 23, 2019, when you presented her with quit-claim deeds. You brought buyers to her home without her knowledge. You threatened to have her declared incompetent. You told her she had 2 months to live and to stop fighting you. Does any of that sound like the behavior of a devoted husband? Troy's face was red. I was trying to protect us both. You were trying to protect yourself, Patricia cut him off. You were betting on your wife's death and you got caught. Isn't that the truth? No. Isn't it true that you expected your wife to die before she could contest the sale of your home? That's not. Isn't it true that when she survived, when she fought back, you panicked because your plan had failed? I loved my wife. Troy finally shouted, losing his composure. Patricia stared at him coldly. If that's what you call love, Mr. Hoffman, I'd hate to see your hate. She sat down. The damage was done. Closing arguments happened that afternoon. Gerald Briggs tried to salvage things, arguing that Troy's actions, while perhaps misguided, came from a place of financial fear, not malice. He asked the jury to consider the stress, the uncertainty, the impossible situation. Patricia's closing was surgical. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, standing before the jury, this case isn't complicated. A woman got sick. Her husband saw an opportunity. He tried to steal from her while she was at her weakest. He failed. Now he wants you to feel sorry for him because his plan didn't work, because his wife had the audacity to survive. He paused, letting that sink in. Claire Hoffman didn't just survive cancer, Patricia continued. She survived her husband. She survived his betrayal, his cruelty, his greed. And now she's asking you for justice. Not revenge, justice. She wants what's rightfully hers. Half of the marital assets, including the home she helped build. Compensation for the funds he tried to hide. And accountability for the pain he caused. She walked back to our table, putting her hand on my shoulder. Claire Hoffman is a fighter, Patricia said. She fought cancer. She fought her husband. She's fighting now for what's fair. I'm asking you to stand with her. Give her the justice she deserves. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they came back, the forewoman, a middle-aged black woman with kind eyes, read the verdict. In the matter of the marital home, awarded to Claire Hoffman with Troy Hoffman ordered to vacate within 30 days. In the matter of the hidden $40,000, returned to Claire Hoffman in full, plus interest and penalties. In the matter of Troy's retirement accounts, 50% awarded to Claire Hoffman. In the matter of spousal support, Troy Hoffman ordered to pay $2,000 monthly for 3 years to assist with ongoing medical expenses and re-establishment costs. Total value of my settlement, approximately $680,000, plus the ongoing support. Troy's face went white. I felt Beth grab my hand, squeezing so hard I thought she'd cut off circulation. We'd won. Completely. Judge Kowalski addressed Troy directly. Mr. Hoffman, I've been on this bench for 19 years and I've seen a lot of ugly divorces. But what you did, trying to exploit your wife's terminal illness for financial gain, that's a new low. I hope you're ashamed of yourself, though I doubt you are. You're ordered to comply with all financial judgments within 60 days. If you fail to do so, I'll hold you in contempt. We're adjourned. She banged her gavel. Outside the courthouse, I stood on the steps with Beth and Patricia, blinking in the late August sun. Reporters were there. The case had gotten local media attention, shouting questions. Ms. Hoffman, how do you feel? What's next for you? Do you have a message for other women facing similar situations? Patricia fielded most of them, but I stepped forward for one answer. My message, I said, my voice clear and strong, is that you're stronger than you think. Even when people bet against you, even when you're at your lowest, you can fight back. And sometimes you win. We left before Troy came out. I didn't need to see him again. That chapter was close. Troy fought the judgment for a few weeks, filing appeals that went nowhere. By October 2020, he'd finally accepted reality and began liquidating assets to pay me. The house in Seattle, our house, my house, was listed for sale. We ended up selling it for $940,000 in December 2020, splitting the proceeds per the court order. I walked away with $470,000 from the sale alone, plus the other judgments. I never moved back to Seattle. Portland had become home. Beth and Austin helped me find a beautiful condo downtown, 2 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of Mt. Hood on clear days. I paid cash, $320,000, and still had plenty left to invest. By November 2020, Dr. Hughes officially declared me in remission. The cancer was gone. I'd beaten it. I also went back to work, but not architecture. That life felt like it belonged to someone else. Instead, I started consulting for cancer nonprofits, helping them design patient resource centers and support facilities. I used my architecture background to create spaces that didn't feel clinical or depressing. Places where people fighting for their lives could feel human. The work was fulfilling in ways my old job never was. Troy meanwhile spiraled. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd had to sell his condo, downsize significantly, and his real estate business suffered after word got out about the divorce. Turns out, people don't like doing business with men who abandon their dying wives. His reputation in Seattle was ruined. I didn't feel joy at his downfall, but I didn't feel guilt either. He'd made his choices. These were the consequences. In spring of 2021, I got a letter from him. It was forwarded through Patricia, who called me before opening it. "Do you want to read this?" she asked. "What does it say?" She was quiet for a moment. "He's apologizing. Says he was wrong, that he let fear and greed control him. He's asking for forgiveness." "Do you think he means it?" I asked. "Does it matter?" Patricia replied. "You don't owe him anything, Claire. Not even a response." He was right. I told her to shred the letter. I never spoke to Troy again. By 2022, 2 years after the trial, I was thriving. My health was stable. Regular checkups showed no signs of recurrence. I'd built a consulting business that was both profitable and meaningful. I'd reconnected with old friends, made new ones, and even started dating cautiously. Beth's kids, Emma and Lucas, called me Aunt Claire now, and I spent every Sunday at their house for dinner. I'd become part of their family in a way that felt permanent and real. One Sunday evening in March 2022, sitting on Beth's porch while the kids played in the yard, she turned to me. "You know what's crazy?" she said. 3 years ago we thought you were dying. Now look at you." I looked down at my hands, strong, steady, healthy. "I almost did die," I said quietly. "Not from cancer. From believing I was as worthless as he said I was." "You were never worthless," Beth said fiercely. "I know that now," I replied. "But I didn't then. I needed to lose everything, my health, my marriage, my home, to find out what I was really made of." "And what's that?" she asked, smiling. I smiled back. "Steel. That's my story. The husband who thought I'd be dead before the new year ended up losing everything himself. I didn't just survive. I rebuilt my entire life into something better than what I had before. If you've been counted out, written off, or betrayed by someone you trusted, remember this. Their opinion of you doesn't define your worth. Your fight does." Drop a comment sharing your own comeback story, and don't forget to subscribe for more tales of justice served cold. Thanks for listening.